By the way, Jake, you weren't here when I started this, but the good news is I killed a bottle.
Uh-huh.
The bad news is I wasn't watching how much I was pouring, and I've taken a few sips out of this, and it's...
What bottle? Oh, my God. What
it was
bottle
like
is it?
Here. Barnstormer.
Ah.
I've been wanting to finish this one for a while. I thought there was less in the bottle, but it kept pouring, and then the Glencairn got full. But that's okay, because I'm already drunk. Shh. Shh.
A podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters. Welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
Oh, I should have been paying attention to the play. I'm Dan.
And I'm Goldie Gold Jake.
Zing!
How long you been planning that one out for, Dan?
I thought of it a couple minutes ago
Sunday.
as I was trying to empty my full Glencairn.
Ah. Yes, please watch the video if you're not watching the video. Dan literally has a Glencairn filled to the rim.
It was. I've had a little bit, but...
Yeah. You can
And I
also
also
see his
and
face
you-
is pretty red as it is, and it's going to get redder throughout the show. So.
And if you're also watching, you'll see that I did the Tyreek Stevenson when Jake started the play of introducing us. I just turned around and taunted the crowd that's in my house, which is my dog.
Poor you.
Go Bears.
Winning record. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Back to whiskey.
Yes. So yeah, tonight we're talking about twist tops, twist top whiskeys. I feel like we have not talked about cheap whiskey in a while.
Inexpensive. Jake.
Bop, 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 bop. There's some whiskey that's higher price that still has twist off.
Yes, and
yeah, that's true.
we will get into that. I also feel like twist tops aren't really talked about as much in the whiskey world.
Packaging is not talked about a ton.
Maybe not on other... I mean, I don't know. If you're a distiller, you're talking a lot about packaging and branding, and we all know that makes a huge impact on your sales.
Our listeners aren't distillers, though, and distilleries.
No, but our listeners are buyers, and they... not just them, but anyone. If a bottle looks really good, looks really pretty, it's going to catch your eye more than just every, bottle, whatever wine bottle that they all package under. It needs something unique. And twist tops don't help that, but there are certain whiskeys that are bottled in twist tops that are sneakily very good.
Yeah. That's like, I think one of the things that we'll touch on are like the value proposition, I guess, of twist tops and what to, which ones to kind of look for that are like super good value and kind of sleepers on the shelf. Because there's quite a lot on the bottom shelf that are twist tops. That's not to say that none of them are worthwhile.
There's also some hard to find whiskeys that are twist tops.
Yes, that is also correct.
Let's get it out of the way, Dan. Like what?
Mellow corn.
You think that's hard to find?
No, not at all.
No, he's talking about
obviously
Wellers.
the big one in the group, and probably the most famous, and probably the most overpaid for, even though it's one of my favorite whiskeys. Paying anything over retail for it is way too much. I would say Weller 12. Thoughts? You guys are going to stare at me, or what are we doing here?
That is a twist top whiskey.
Weller
Yeah,
National
I mean,
Reserve, Weller
I was
12
going to say that is
are
probably the most obvious one that had to come up at some point, and we had to bring it up. Yes, they're not bad
Well, let's
whiskeys.
start there.
Okay. They're good
But,
whiskeys.
I mean,
they're not
so
phenomenal. They're not bad. They're very good whiskeys.
they're good whiskeys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're solid whiskeys.
Yeah, solid for what you're paying retail.
almost all of the Weller line is solid for what you're paying for it if you buy it at retail. Now, we started there. We probably should have backtracked first. Now,
Yeah, I was going to say,
dumb idea.
yeah, maybe
But
backtrack.
first of all, does it matter if it's a twist top or not? Your guys' thoughts on, does it matter if whiskey comes in a twist top or a cork or a fake cork? Because this here looks like a cork, but it's rubber.
Yes, which
Yeah.
we are starting to see that a little bit more.
Most of your whiskeys are. Most stuff is not actual cork anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say most stuff still is actual cork, but if you've rewind 10 years ago, everything was either cork or twist off. And now we're starting to see the synthetic corks. We're starting to see the glass decanter toppers. Those are starting to come around a little bit, which
That I'm still seeing more in like Bacchus Armagnac and stuff, which would be more true to what it actually was supposed to be. Like your high-end champagne, or not champagnes, your high-end white
Armagnac?
wines usually came with a stopper and not a cork.
yes. And wine is one of the things that I was going to touch on in
go
regards
ahead.
to corks.
Sorry, I'm drunk. These people don't know this.
Yes.
Why are
30
we
minutes
making
ago when we said we're going to do the
episode?
podcast tonight, Dan said he was drinking heavily since 3 o'clock. So
It's 4 hours later.
it might be an entertaining one, especially if he finishes that Glencairn.
Is that a challenge, my friend?
I mean, okay. All right, so let's backtrack a little bit. We had to get the Weller out there because that is the big one that everyone's probably going to think of when they think of good whiskeys that have a twist top. But let's backtrack and let's talk about corks and the wine industry, because it's always kind of been thought of in the wine world, rewind 5-10 years ago, that if it's a twist off, it's not as good quality as a cork. Most people would probably agree on that. Not really the case anymore.
Before you go any further, think twist off wine. What's the first brand that comes to mind?
Yellowtail?
Oh, I was going to say Barefoot, but I'll give you Yellowtail.
But Barefoot's a good one too. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think of those as wines. I've got some other.
Wait. Are you saying Boone's Farm isn't wine and I wasn't classy
No,
when I
you
was
were
18
not.
ye's old and drinking?
You thought you were classy, but I mean, it is classy for an 18-year-old. But
Okay. Is Boone's Farm still a thing?
I think it is. We definitely don't carry it.
So no. So it's not a thing. It's basically.
We definitely don't carry it. I had somebody request it as a joke, and I kind of forgot. Maybe it's not even available here anymore. Or they said
What about Hooch? Oh, you guys are all too young.
No,
Hooch.
yeah,
Never
that
mind.
doesn't
never
ring
mind.
a bell.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm old.
But so anyway, I think it's very interesting that the wine industry is shifting towards twist tops, especially on certain very high end wines, because a lot of wine drinkers in wineries are very old school and they don't like that kind of change. And it's always been perceived that if it has a cork, it's a better quality than a twist off wine. A big example is Cade, their reserve. And if you're a wino, you definitely know what Cade is. Pretty high-end winery. But their reserve Cabernet is like $260, sometimes up to $300 a bottle. And they just started shipping them in cases that have half corks, half twist off. And it's the same wine. They just split the bottles in half. And that is part of their motion to get people to realize that it's okay to have a twist off on a high-end bottle of wine. So with wine, it can get corked and go bad fairly easily. We see it in about 1 in 20 to 25 bottles of wine. If they're not stored properly, are what they called corked. Kind of turns into like vinegary, pretty much undrinkable. You'll know right away when you open that bottle if it's corked or not. So all these winos are building these massive collections, storing all these wines. I mean, wine collectors are insane compared to whiskey collectors because you can easily build up a collection of 1,000 to 5,000 bottles of wine. And
It's
you
way
can,
cheaper to build up a wine collection than a whiskey collection.
I don't know, man. I think it's cheaper to build a whiskey collection.
Unless you're going fine wines. But if I was going to buy in, I could buy six bottles of whiskey for 12 bottles of wine.
No one's collecting barefoot, though, Dan.
Yeah, see, these winos are buying wines between 30 and, 300 to sometimes even 500 a bottle. And they're buying 500 to 1,000. They're stocking cellars. Like it's always been a whiskey collecting's kind of, I mean, of course there's people that have collected whiskey, but more and more people now than ever are, and wine collecting has always been a big thing. And wine, when you have that big of a collection, well, first off, you can easily open 2-3 bottles in a night. If you have a couple people over for dinner, you're probably opening a couple bottles of wine.
Finish a couple bottles of
yes,
wine in a night.
Which is why I think it's a lot harder to, or a lot more expensive to collect wine and buy wine, because you can go through them a lot quicker, assuming you're opening a couple bottles a week. Now, your collection, there's probably some really expensive wine in there that just sat there for too long, because when you have that many bottles, it's hard to track on when things should be drank and when they shouldn't, because wine will go bad at some point. The flavor kind of gets better, and then it peaks, and then it starts to turn a little bit. And every wine, depending on the winery, depending on the style, depending on the vintage, has a different lifespan. So it's almost impossible to track all those wines and know the perfect time to drink it. Now, so you got this $400 bottle of wine. You've been saving it for a very, very special occasion. You open it and it's corked. Nothing you can do about it. We actually do let people return corked wines, but not something that's been purchased years ago sitting in their cellar. So you're kind of out of luck at that point. So a lot of these wineries are trying to shift the consumer's mindset to a screw top and saying, hey, it's okay for your $300 Cabernet to be in a screw top, because guess what? It's probably not going to go bad if you're storing it in a temperature controlled area, which a lot of wine collectors do. And even if you're following all the rules and it has a cork, you still have that chance of it going corked. So does that kind of make sense with the wine and
like one of
the shift of that?
We probably should have talked about this in the myths episode, but like there's not really any difference between a proper cork and a proper twist top in terms of ability to seal the bottle.
There's a hair difference, but it's very, very minimal. Because if you listen to that episode we talked about, or maybe the Dusty's episode, we talked about air is the only thing that can really degrade whiskey over time.
Mm-hmm.
And a screw top has a little bit more leeway of letting air in a bottle, but we're talking very, very little.
I don't know. I don't know, because if the cork isn't fully secure, and especially if the bottle was ever stored on its side for a little bit, that can disintegrate the cork, and that's when we see a lot of those.
That's true. If you're not
older
storing,
bottles,
that's the biggest thing with corks is if you have a real cork, it needs to stay
upright,
have some moisture in it.
But yes, it needs to stay upright. But yes, every once in a while, it needs to hit a little bit of moisture.
Otherwise, that cork. That's like a lot of Dusties we talk about. When you open a Dusty, you'll probably need to have a cheesecloth around, because that actual cork will disintegrate when you open it, and you don't want to put it through a coffee filter. It'll strip some of the flavor out. So you want to use a cheesecloth to make sure you catch some of the cork remains that disintegrate into the whiskey.
I think that was like a word-for-word repeat from the last episode.
So, I don't know. I see both ways. I think there is probably... And there's definitely an easier way to make sure no air gets into a twist off than a cork. And there's a lot less that you have to worry about as a consumer if you have a twist off bottle or a glass top decanter than a cork, because you don't have to worry about tilting them every once in a while, which I don't know the exact rule or guidelines on that. I've seen some people say like, oh, once a month I'm turning all my whiskey bottles. I think that's excessive. I don't know if you guys have any knowledge about that, but I would think once a month is very excessive, and maybe it's like a twice a year, once a year thing.
Yeah, I just check if I get like condensation near the top, I'll flip the bottle around real quick. That's about it.
Mhm. But so I think with all this information, wine and whiskey, we can all agree that we should be shifting to a synthetic cork or a glass top or a twist top, as there's a lot less of a chance of anything bad happening to the bottle.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean you're gonna get better consistency out of synthetic for sure.
For sure.
Because cork is natural, and there's natural, what would you say, blemishes in the material.
Not blemishes, but it's not adding any flavor or doing anything to the actual wine itself.
Well, I mean, cork
Or
is like
whiskey itself.
it's a like plant fiber basically.
It's just
right?
it could
So,
be a
like,
little inconsistent. It's from a cork
Right.
tree,
yeah.
Yes.
So like it's
mostly
not,
from Portugal,
Mm-hmm.
but
it
I
should
used to know
seal
the name of that
100%,
tree.
but
The botanical name for that tree.
there's
is what we call it.
variation in nature. So
yeah, just like with aging whiskey in a barrel, every
Yeah.
barrel is going to be a little different. Every cork might be a little different, and some of them may not be as good quality as the next one.
Trying to get.
We see that synthetic cork with the little
zoom in.
grooves in there.
So
Yeah.
it's not zooming in well. Let me try and hide
I
my
see the
face.
grooves.
There's a
Yeah.
there's a groove there. That's mainly for ease of inserting the cork for the air to pass through it. There's a couple very small other little scratches in the cork just to help ease it in. But the reason they make them like this is that slit that you saw easily is to help it go into the bottle and seal tight and let air out, because you can't compress air. So as you're pushing a cork in,
right.
you have your liquid, you have a little bit of air gap, you can't compress air. So the synthetic corks allow that air to come out, which actually takes any oxygen out of the bottle if it's filled properly. Which, again, we talked about how oxygen is one of the few things that can destroy whiskey. Same thing with wine, same thing with everything. So synthetic corks give you a nice tight seal every time, take as much air out as possible. And again, you're not getting any actual flavor from a cork.
No, I don't think it.
Very, 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 very little.
I don't think anybody thinks that you're getting flavor from a cork.
No.
And if you do, I got some questions for you.
There's people that think that, just so you know.
I've never heard that, but I'm sure there are people that do think that.
There's at least one or two people listening right now that think that.
If you think that, comment on this episode and let us know.
Call me a piece of. If you think that, just call me a piece of shit. I'm fine with it.
yeah, please feel free to call.
Or
Dan
just call me a piece of shit because you feel like it. Just differentiate if you just call me a piece of shit because I'm a piece of shit,
Yeah,
or if you call me a piece of shit because you think that it matters. Just so we can keep account.
spam the comment section with Dan's a piece of shit, please. But so I guess like covering all of that, why is there a perception that twist top whiskeys are somehow inferior?
Because they ain't fancy.
I think it's because twist tops in reality are cheaper than a synthetic cork or a real cork or glass topper. So a lot of distilleries will just naturally put their lower end bottom shelf bottles in a twist off because they're going to save a couple bucks on that bottle. And when you have a $15 to $20 bottle, a couple bucks makes a big difference. So
About 30 cents, but yeah.
I think old school.
30 cents, but if you're
So,
talking like a company
interesting-
like Buffalo Trace, who does... Uh-oh.
What? I'm here.
Okay, we lost it for a second.
No, I'm here. Don't worry.
You went quiet.
I was-
All right.
well,
Interesting
I
that you
thought,
said
well, because I thought you were going somewhere, but Interestingly,
Ken is never going anywhere.
we were talking with so another good example of a good twist top whiskey is Jepson's. We can all agree they don't make their own whiskey, but they source some pretty good MGP.
Is JTS twist?
JTS is also twist, and that
Okay.
is definitely on my list for good twist top whiskeys. Might as well get the hat out of the bag and mention the cock.
Cat out of the bag.
Cat out of the bag, whatever. Mention the cock. BM cock. Most used coupon code at Gold Eagle, 15% off Fighting Cock, which I went to recommend it today. Saw that we were out of it, so I will be ordering it.
Oh my god!
Well, by the time this episode airs, we'll have it back in stock.
Hey, great logistics, my friend.
Yes, but yeah. So Jepson's Screw Top. When we were first in the talks with them on creating a either a private label or just doing a series of single barrels with them. This was when they were revamping their own label on their bourbon, and we were trying to see if it was a possibility to do corks instead of the screw top, just to do something a little different, make it look a little bit nicer. And I think they said it would add about $1 to every bottle. I don't know if I'm sure the cork didn't cost $1, but they also don't deal with corks. All their products are twist tops, so I'm sure they probably have an automated bottling line, and that was them having to just manually put all the tops on the bottles and go through and order and but yeah, so all right, so they're a little bit more expensive, but again, if you're creating an Evan Williams Bottled and Bond or JTS Brown or a Fighting Cock, and you've got a $16 bottle, you want to try and keep the cost down as much as you can, especially if it's something you're selling in that much volume. I think it does add up and make a little bit of a difference. So yeah, I think that is why people kind of associate twist tops with being cheaper or less expensive products. And maybe inferior, but I don't think that is the case anymore, especially with the wine world kind of shifting to the twist tops a little bit more. I think people are coming around to it, and especially with whiskey people too, realizing and finding all these gems on the bottom shelf that don't cost a lot, and you don't have to pay $80 to $200 to get a really good bottle. Not saying those.
Is Granddad a twist top?
No,
it is a cork.
114. 114 is a cork. Yeah.
I think they're all corks. Pretty sure they're all corks.
I believe you're right. I
know the bonded is, and I would find it hard to believe if the regular 80 proof, except for you know what, the 80 proof I actually think is a twist off. It's got that orange cap to it. I know the handles are, I'm pretty sure the 80 proof is a twist top. But
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good whiskey.
Confirmed. Old Granddad A is a twist off.
Knew it.
Okay, but just the 80 proof.
Just the 80.
Yeah, but like I mean, one of the highlights of the past couple of years for me was your Jim Beam blind, where we tried a bunch of what would be considered like bottom shelf Jim Beam variants. And those are all like twist tops.
The black, the double oak, the devil's cut.
Yeah, which like I bought a bottle of the Beam double oak to cook with because it's like, one, extremely flavorful, and two, it's like $12. So like I don't feel bad about using it.
It's a little bit more than 12, but it's under 20.
Yeah, it's not 12, but yeah, I mean,
but yeah, all those
black and double oak are excellent. Those are both twist tops. Pretty sure.
And the black
devil's cut, I think, is a twist top.
That whole line is all twist tops. And the black, they just added back the 7-year age statement,
Oh, nice.
And so now they're all 86 proof, so they're not gonna blow your mind if you're a bourbon snob, but they are all very flavorful for 86 proof, and at that price point, they're going to be hard to beat from that 80 to 90 proof standpoint.
Yeah, and there's Rittenhouse Rye, which is another sub 20 bottle.
Rittenhouse.
Old Overholt. A lot of Overholt. There's a lot of it's weird to think about because there's a lot of absolute staples that are twist tops, but I feel like they're ignored a lot. Even though if you ask almost anybody, is Rittenhouse a good whiskey, they'll tell you yes.
Took down E.H. Taylor Rye in a blind, dominated it.
Sorry, that was Jake sucking the cock of Heaven Hill. I'm sorry.
What do you want me to... Is Old Granddad a good whiskey? People will tell you yes. Is that better?
Another interesting one is unless it's recently changed, Maker's 101 is a twist off, and the rest of the Maker's line is a cork. I find that
101 is, I think, my favorite.
Yeah, 101 is phenomenal, and I find that very interesting that that's the only Maker's product, I believe, right, that has a twist off.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Honestly, as much as we make fun of it and as much as we make fun of Roberto,
Mellowcorn
is not horrible for the price point. It's twist off. It's... I don't know. When I think through this...
it's not bourbon.
I understand...
It's very different, but it is good.
It's whiskey. And we talk about rye all the GD time on this podcast because you're a whore for rye. But Mellowcorn is...
We need to do a rye episode.
No, we don't.
It's been too long.
Mellowcorn is not a bad whiskey for the price. And again, it's a twist off. Look, I get packaging matters and how the bottle looks and everything matters to people. That's obviously why marketing is a big money maker. And that's why, we've talked about rye. How much money, Jake, I know you talked about it one of our very first episodes, about how much money Woodford Reserve spent on trying to figure out how to market their rye bottle, and they came up with that color. And then everyone copied it. Marketing is a thing, packaging is a thing, that's all fine. But if you're concerned about how the top of the bottle looks, via cork, via fake cork, via twist top, you're doing it all wrong. Is the whiskey good in the bottle, good or not? If that's good, then that doesn't matter how it's packaged. You're not getting anything from the top, especially in whiskey. Whiskey is done... When people put whiskey in a bottle, at whatever proof they decide to put it in the bottle, that's the proof they thought would do best for the average consumer. So if they're using a twist top, if they're using synthetic cork, if they're using actual cork, at the end of the day, they spent a lot of time and money and said, this is how the whiskey should taste. Whatever closes the bottle does not impact the flavor at all. So do not ever think about how it's packaged in terms of sealing the top is going to change your flavor at all.
Never. For any reason.
I mean, that's just dumb.
For any reason. Ever. Ever.
Thank you, Jake.
All right.
You're really driving my point home.
Maybe instead of a rye episode, we should just have you guys duke it out for 45 minutes, just a roast. Let's just do the Dan versus Jake roast.
I will do a roast in a heartbeat. And that is
a
not
live
No,
3-hour-long roast.
it's not. I don't
want
to
exactly. Exactly.
And
Jake
we will
does not want to be part of this roast.
We will all start drinking at noon. We will record at 9 p.m. But no, I think
give me a 3-hour head start now.
I think it's more of I don't know, maybe a status thing. I find it hard to believe that anyone really believes the cork is going to change the flavor. Now, maybe there's that outlier out there that heard that from somewhere. I don't know, but I think more of it is kind of like a status thing. People, they want to set up a really nice, fancy bar at their house, and they want the bottles to look good. They don't want, a Jepson's with a screw top, even though it's really, really good whiskey. They care more about how the bottle looks and how their bar looks than what the whiskey tastes like. So, to drive Dan's point home again, it's what's in the bottle.
As like a slight pivot on this conversation, like I think we've seen a massive increase in the amount of money that distilleries are putting into their packaging, especially for their premium wines. I think that's kind of an interesting trend. Is it, in some cases at least, it seems like you're paying more for the packaging than you are for the actual whiskey.
But that works. That cool bottles work. Peerless, people will spend more money for a Peerless bottle than a $70 bottle with better juice in it, just because the Peerless bottle looks cooler.
Jake, I think, has a problem with that statement.
Peerless is another conversation, and we need to get John on from Peerless because I bet you he'd be happy to come on an episode. But we'll have Dan sit that one out.
No, put me in, Coach.
Peerless is a little bit of a different story. I'll touch on it really quick. Their distillery is very nice. They care a lot about it's a very bougie distillery. Care a lot about the image. Obviously, you got to start making money as a distillery if you're spending all this money to make it look really nice. And they did release their bourbon at a too high of a price point at too young of an age, and they still have a loyal, raving following from a lot of people. So they're doing something right. But the biggest thing with Peerless is their single barrels are really, really good, and the small batches are just very kind of okay for their price point. But the single barrels are only like $10 to $15 more than the small batch, and they're very different from bottle to bottle. So I think with Peerless, you got to go for the single barrels. They're always good. They're always very different. They do a really, really good job of picking barrels to go into the single barrel program. And then it seems like they just kind of dump all of the other barrels that don't make the cut together and just put it in the small batches.
Jake, Gold Eagle Jake, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You watching your camera?
Am I watching my camera? Yes. Old Pepper.
What type of cork did it have?
I believe it's a real cork.
It is a synthetic cork.
So that has changed then.
What did the tax stamp say?
I don't know.
Why don't you know?
Because
your first 5 seconds, what did you notice about it?
I tried to read what label.
You saw the label first,
right?
What
product it was. Yeah, it was a bourbon or rye. Yes.
You see the label first.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing you looked at, even though we are doing an episode on toppers, is the cork. It's a synthetic cork. The tax stamp says finest Kentucky oak on it.
We'll
go back to it.
Yeah, but
it doesn't matter.
No one's going to
matter.
Yeah, but I'm not. No one over a video screen, even in person from a couple feet away, you're not going to be able to tell it's a synthetic cork. If it's a screw top, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, none of us think.
Because I know that what matters is what's in the bottle.
Right.
But I can tell you that bottle would look pretty awkward if it had a screw top with the tax stamp over it. That I would notice.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say so because, like, a lot of back.
More so because I know what Taylor looks like.
Right.
Everyone loves the tax stamp. It's got the nice wooden top on the cork.
So back in the day, tax stamps mattered. I've talked to you. If anyone's listening, we have a very old bottle. I think it's like 65 to 69 bottle of shit. I don't even know what liqueur is. The monks made it. Green chartreuse.
Chartreuse? Yeah.
Chartreuse. Bottle from the 60s. It's a twist off. with a tax stamp over it. That's the way it was.
It's still a
It's
twist
still
off.
a twist off.
It's still, but it doesn't matter. This is from when I've done the research. Is between 65 and 69. If it was full, if you're watching the video, a full bottle would be right to the neck on this. This is maybe an eighth of an inch below. So in, God, I can't even do the math right now, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, it's lost maybe an ounce with a twist off. Maybe an ounce with a twist off.
How do you know it wasn't a short fill?
It could have been a short fill too.
But I mean,
I'm just guessing because it does. You will lose some evaporation.
I don't-
I mean,
that
none
long
of
time.
us think that there's a difference in quality.
Yeah, you don't need to
There's
convince
people
us.
listening that probably do,
Yeah,
and that's who I'm trying to argue.
but
against,
we already
Jake. Not
established
you
that
two
you're
idiots.
going to fight them behind Gold Eagle.
I mean, so we can spend time to do the research and pull up the data. I guarantee you that there's a higher chance of that bottle, something going wrong with it if you use a real cork versus a twist off. And there's...
But I feel it's negated by the fact that that cork is going to disintegrate if you're going to keep it for a long time and try and make money off of it. Because you're going to lose just as much trying to filter out the bad cork that disintegrated into your bottle.
It's just marketing. Like that's really what the decision comes down to. It's, are you willing to invest in real cork, synthetic cork, or a twist top on your bottle in order to hit whatever price point you're trying to hit, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know its price point because it's like, think of what people, it's not as much anymore, but go back 2 years ago. A Weller 12 could sell for $300 without a problem. And it's a $65 bottle retail.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, like a good example is the Granddad line. Like Jim Beam feels that they can still sell bottled and bond old Granddad with a cork for $18 or something like that. Like it's just a marketing decision, basically.
Yeah.
So how much are you going to invest in your packaging in order to convey whatever message you're trying to convey to your customer?
And that's exactly it, Jake. That's the thing. It's like, I will spend a few dollars more on Peerless because the bottle looks really cool. I'm not going to spend as much more as they really want me to, but it looks effing cool. So I might buy a Peerless bottle over something else because of that. There's a lot of money and research behind marketing.
That was like that, the Angels Envy ice wine finish.
When I blew up because it was a cardboard box and not
Yeah.
a normal wood box that the
But
port
the
finish
bottle,
came in.
the bottle was really cool.
Bottle's
It was
badass.
frosted.
Their
It's the coolest bottle I've ever seen in my life.
their packaging went downhill.
Yeah.
The bottle, the ice wine bottle, I don't have it. It's
The
downstairs.
actual bottle is better than the cardboard box.
Because
that
it
came
starts
in
off at a
before.
heavy frost at the bottom and fades to no frost at all by the time you hit the shoulders.
Yeah.
So it looks really cool. The bottles cost a lot of money, and then they put it in a cardboard box, not a wood box. Like
Because they
normally do for
weren't
all
going
their
to be able to
specialties.
put it in a nice wood box like the
Port finish.
like
Cast
the
strength port finish.
cast strength or
Yeah,
whatever,
wasn't it more expensive than the
I
cast
think it's like
strength
200
port
some bucks.
finish?
It was
No.
one of my biggest regrets of what I spent on whiskey.
I don't
think it was like
think it was
$250.
more expensive.
I
think
thought it was
about
like
the same
180 to
price.
200.
And also
Which
the
would be the same as the
Right.
cast strength port finish.
yeah, and it used to be like 160 or 70 for the cast strength port finish, and it came
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
most beautiful wooden box, magnetized cover.
Oh, mine's got an actual like mechanical latch, and that's what all my corks stay in.
So yeah, every year they switched the packaging a little bit on that box, and people were so disappointed. The last couple of years came in a cardboard box, and then last year it didn't even come in a box. And it was like I think last year we literally got 2 bottles, and that was it. No box, nothing. Like $250 MSRP for Cash Strength Angel's Envy, which is why we do barrel picks of Angel's Envy, because it's almost the same thing, almost the same proof, and it's 1/3 of the price.
But at the end of the day, it's not just the cork. Packaging matters. Do people want Taylor if it's not in a tube?
Yes.
If people walked in and they said, "Hey, I want a Taylor," if you just handed them a bottle without the tube, what do you think they'd say?
It's funny.
Well, if I don't get the Blanton's box, I'm a little disappointed.
It's
Fair.
funny that you brought that up because there are, every time we do a Tater release, there's people that are like, oh, you don't have the box for this Blanton's? And you have to explain to them that half of the bottles come with a box, half of them don't. That's how they pack every case. And the boxed ones always go first. People pick the boxed ones, then the unboxed ones go next. There was also one time where one of the tubes on a Taylor got damaged, and we had that was when we had 8 cases of Taylor. Guess which bottle was the last bottle to sell? The bottle without the tube. And that I'm pretty sure that person asked if we had the tube for it and had to explain, sorry, it's damaged. Do you want it or not?
Yeah.
How damaged?
I think.
I'm kidding. Don't answer the question. That was just being a straight jacket.
If you really want to know, I'm pretty sure it came in without the top or the bottom, so there was no way to hold the bottle in there.
Duct tape.
Well,
didn't even have it.
Didn't even have to think about an answer for that.
Last master class, we were joking about the Weller Millennium, and that it's got this big giant white box, and when you open it, lights up and shit, and shines on the bottle and all this stuff. How much of that $7,000 price point is paying for that box? Probably at least
$7.
$7. No, more.
No, $7.
It's
a cardboard box.
It's at least $1,000, including the bottle.
Yeah,
it's a cardboard box, right?
MDX. But I mean the value that Buffalo Trace puts on that package.
Yeah,
so it's probably $1,000.
No,
I guarantee you the Woodford Baccarat bottle is a $1,500 empty glass bottle, and I know that's a little right. I know, but I know it's a little different. But I'm sure they didn't cheap out on the glass for the bottle, and I'm sure
they're not advertising the glass. There's nothing that says it's.
Dan, the box lights up. You open it up.
You know how much an LED light costs?
It automatically lights up.
I have a 4-foot LED light strip 6-foot LED light strip that responds to my voice commands, and it costs $80.
Well, whatever they did, they made it look nice enough where
they did make it look
people
great, but
want
they spent less than $100 on packaging.
No,
I just want everyone to know that.
No way.
They spent less than $100 on packaging.
Right.
Unless they use some crazy-ass glass that's found in some remote country that someone has to hand dig and then hand blow.
But all right. Settle down. We're going to research this. We're going to come back next episode with an answer.
LED lights in that box cost less than $5.
Yeah, no one's arguing that the box didn't cost more than $20.
No, but Jake is.
No, I guarantee you it is.
He's typing right now. You can hear.
No, but what I'm saying is that Buffalo Trace probably values that packaging experience at $1,000.
They can value the experience, but you can value anything at whatever cost you want.
Well, right. Yeah.
If people are going to pay for it or not is a different thing. And that's why you see a lot of people that have Millennium up for sale.
Yeah, because it's asinine. It's insanity to think.
Jake stopped typing, so he's reading through his Google results.
I'm looking, but
I didn't have an answer for it, so now he's got to scroll down.
All right,
he has to keep scrolling down.
Settle down.
What's that box actually made of?
I'll have to
cardboard.
No, it's not cardboard. I will.
It's MDX then.
I will look at it. I will look at it tomorrow.
You bought a $20 desk off of.
You can. Dan, people are listening to this on their morning commute. They don't need you shouting in their ear and turning down the volume in their car.
I am shouting truths.
It doesn't matter what you're shouting. You're shouting. We will come back to this. We're not going to debate.
Jake can't find his right answer.
Yeah, no.
I did one quick Google search. I'm not going to read through all these different articles while we're on an episode recording. We're talking about twist offs. We're not talking about boxes and packaging.
This is past the Canco right now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that we're seeing a big focus on packaging, particularly on high-end products.
I get it on a high-end products. If you're spending money, you want a cool box that you can keep after the whiskey's gone.
But I mean, we're getting to I mean, some of this is getting insane, like the Weller Millennium, but
Or
like,
the Clicks vodka that's like
I mean,
$300 for a bottle of vodka.
the Millennium is a whole nother discussion and category that is beyond the
it's
ultra
absurd to
premium
begin with
category. But yes, we are seeing packaging step up. I think it's cool. If you're gonna pay for if you're gonna pay a few $100s for a bottle, you want something that looks classy. That you
And
can.
you want something that will last after the bottle's gone to show people that you actually had that bottle.
But
Sure.
I kind of like the Knob Creek 18, because it comes in like that
It
wooden
doesn't.
frame.
Not anymore. That was just batch
No?
one. No,
Really?
just
Oh,
batch
okay.
one. Yeah, funny.
So I was gonna
how-
say I'm not paying for the packaging on that. I'm paying
Remember,
for the
Jake,
whiskey.
remember the Lock Stock 21 you bought?
Yeah.
That Jake bought a Lock Stock 21, which is that's a rye, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 21-year-old rye that came in a actual plywood box with magnets on it,
Yeah.
but nothing lined up on it.
Yeah, the box was terrible.
It was like they tried to make a nice box, but it's like you gave a fifth grader the dimensions and be like, cut this out and then just slap some magnets on it and stick it
Yeah,
together.
they did not pay
did
much
not line
attention
up.
to that box at all.
Like, I get if you're spending the money on a ultra premium bottle to have something cool for it's coming. I'm not knocking that. There's got to be some value added proposition in there
There's
somewhere.
the Pendleton 20 that
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
in a
Ah,
nice
yeah, that's
box.
a good
The
one.
barn door.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like I have this. Hold on. This Blue Run Double Oak came in like a really nice box. That like opens up.
Oh,
like
and like
that.
Tesla door opens up.
Yeah,
It's
it's
suicide
kind of
doors.
cool.
That's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
But like, and like this is like, I mean, it's like fake leather, but it's like a leather bound kind of box, with a nice big gold plaque on it. It's like this is like, it's cool.
How much did cool cost you, by the way?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah, Blue Run starts at $100, so
Yeah.
can't imagine what that bottle costs. But but yeah, packaging's cool.
I like the fact that Jake just saw it. He's like, my store didn't fucking buy that shit.
I don't.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think we got offered it. I don't.
Go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
No, that was like a special.
Okay, yeah. Sure tastes great.
No, it was like I think it was a seal box partnership thing.
Okay, even better.
But I'm not. I don't know what you're talking about.
We better
Steel box.
wrap
Steel
this
box.
episode up before Dan finishes that glass.
Oh no, we're gonna get there.
No, I think the point is we don't want to.
Yeah.
There ain't much left there,
so,
sir.
I know.
I guess. Yeah. Final thoughts on the correlation between quality and twist tops.
My final thoughts are there started originally. There was a correlation. I think a lot of inexpensive bottles came in the twist off. Now, not so much the case. And I would like to see more higher end brands and bottles go with a glass topper or synthetic cork than use a real cork, because the data is there that it is just much less likely for something to go wrong with that bottle when you don't use a real cork. So that's my final thoughts. And I hate to say it, but Dan's point that he was driving home about what's in the bottle, that's really what matters at the end of the day. How does the whiskey taste? That is the most important thing.
Jake, why don't you go ahead? I'll save my thoughts for last.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the twist off, or the feelings about twist offs being like subpar, I think is that mentality of like, oh, that's like grandpa's whiskey and like it's garbage. And I think we've talked extensively about how it's just not true. like a lot of those brands that were like, the low bottom shelf brands are actually, pretty stellar whiskeys for the price point. Even not even taking price into account on some of them, they're fantastic. So, yeah, I think it's just a mentality thing that people have carried from, like, for decades, that kind of needs to be broken.
I agree.
And Dan finished his whiskey,
Dan,
so
Dan needs to be broken.
I finished my full Glencairn. And when I say full, it was about a quarter inch from the top of cast strength. What is this?
isn't it
Barnstormer,
double
you
oak?
did yourself well. 119 proof whiskey, minus having
Yeah.
5 cast strength whiskeys before this.
Your
I
eyes
will-
started twitching about 40 minutes ago, so
I will say this. If it comes in a manufactured cardboard box with $3 LED lights and a $5 9-volt battery,
Oh God.
I would probably pay an extra $2,000 for the box. If it doesn't, I don't care what the top of the bottle does as long as it seals off the oxygen. That's my final result.
do you
I think
have-
Dan
do you have
just
any
committed to
valid
buying that
final
Weller
thoughts?
Millennium.
That was a valid final thought. Like, LED lights and 9-volt batteries are really expensive these days. Like, I saw like a 9-foot light up skeleton for Halloween the other day. That was like $35. Like, they're really expensive to have lights in those things.
Don't be upset that you don't have one, Dan.
I'm not upset I don't have one. My buddy Kyle, who's listening, bought, I think it was like a 20 or 30 foot Santa, but maybe it was a 20 or 30 foot skeleton. I don't know. He spends too much money on dumb stuff.
Hi, Kyle.
Hey, Kyle.
And no, don't give him props. He doesn't deserve it. Anywho, that's our thought on toppers. I have some thoughts on whiskey, and the best whiskey I ever tasted was a barrel from Whiskey Acres. That was number 1250. It's a very unique barrel because it's not a weeded whiskey like we always do at
So
Whiskey
you
Acres.
do have some valid closing thoughts.
There's a Whiskey
I
Acres
thought
logo.
you were going to go on a completely unhinged
Me too.
rant out of nowhere. So I'm glad you really brought that
Dude.
around to something relevant.
This thing is calculated. This thing up here, invaluable. I always have a plug for the end. Don't you even worry about it. Barrel number 1250 is the first ever and only ever at this point of listening, which is on 10:30, 10:31, 10:32, 10:33. I don't know what days we're on. That is a rye mash bill from Whiskey Acres at only Gold Eagle. I guarantee you, Jake, I know you have a blind tasting coming up soon. I hope you put it in it because I think it'll knock out every single Kentucky whiskey out there because no one will have an idea that this is 1 from Illinois and 2 a craft whiskey. And the only place they can buy that is
Gold Eagle Wine and Spirits. But yeah, on a serious note, thank you, Dan, for getting us this barrel. I have been receiving absolutely incredible feedback on it from those who have tasted it. The amount of times people have said, I can't believe this is Whiskey Acres, and not in a bad way, but just tastes totally different.
Heard it twice today.
All right.
And comments on our socials.
Yeah,
and
and a
stuff
couple
too.
comments on our podcast. So thank you guys for leaving the positive feedback. Tomorrow, which so this is going to be already released when this podcast episode airs. But tomorrow, Thursday, Halloween, we are releasing a J. Henry barrel. And as I was putting together the tasting notes about that, I just had this thought that we really, really need to be now more than ever supporting our local distilleries because all these big distilleries are ramping up. And before we know it, some of these smaller guys may or may not be around once all these big guys have everything they can, possibly imagine out there on the shelf because they've just ramped up production so much. So we're on a mission to find honey barrels, gem barrels, just really, really good barrels from these local distilleries and showcase them. So make sure you follow along. Follow us on Facebook at Gold Eagle Spirits, Instagram at Gold Eagle Wine. Go to goldeaglewine.com to see what we have in stock. Order online. Use that BMCOC coupon code. The most used coupon code from the Bourbon Matters podcast.
As it should be.
And yeah, we're just shooting the shit, bringing good whiskey, and trying to bring good content to the table as well. So that is, Gold Eagle. And Jake, where can we hear about
where can
Bourbon
we
Matters?
hear that good contact at?
We're trying our best, despite Dan.
Being hammered.
You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch us on Spotify and YouTube. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at Bourbon Matters and Facebook as well. Leave us comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, all that stuff. I'm still plugging. Make sure you check out Movie Matters, the sister podcast. Me and my friend Kevin just wrapped up Halloween, doing John Carpenter movies. And then next month, November, is going to be all John Candy movies, starting with Spaceballs. So that'll be fun too. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.